Ready?
Welcome to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith. Obviously, I'm not Scott Elliot Smith.
I'm Nick. My smoother, much smoother voice.
Exactly.
Welcome back to the R&B sensation.
Welcome back to
Fire.
Smooth Jazz.
Little Teddy Pendergrass.
Yeah.
There we go. Ready?
Yeah. Got it.
Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith. Attorney Nicholas Owen in today, pinch hitting for Scott. And I'm here with Michael Morris. How are you today, Michael?
I'm fantastic. It's good that you're back this week. I'm excited about it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be back. We're going to continue talking about topics we think are important for people to know about what we do at Scott Elliot Smith LPA, helping people with automobile collisions, trucking collisions, motorcycle collisions, and other insurance-related issues. And I know that before we came on air, Michael, you were asking some questions about, kind of what happens from the beginning, kind of a real-world scenario. So I think it's best, you ask questions, and I can go from there, and then we can kind of give a decent narrative to anyone listening so they know what we do, what sets us apart at Scott Elliot Smith LPA, and what we can try to do going forward with them.
Yeah, I wish we would have recorded what we were just talking about beforehand, but we're going to get to it because, again, I think the most valuable resource this show provides is not just letter of the law stuff, but being able to set an expectation for people. So I think the initial, we've had shows talking about the initial taking that settlement check and how you really need to get your medical work checked up, your property damage, because again, insurance companies are going to want to settle with you. What I want to talk about, and I want your perspective on this, so this is purely your opinion, but based on experience. I want to break down a case, okay? So let's start with someone's been in a collision, and they've contacted you or Scott. So in this case, it's you. What is the expectation? You're setting up a meeting with them at your office, at their home?
Absolutely. Actually, I just had this situation recently with a couple of young men who were involved in a collision, and they couldn't leave their home. One could, one couldn't, so I just agreed to drive out there and meet them, and we had the meeting right there at the kitchen table, and we're always happy to do that. Sometimes our clients come into the office, sometimes we go to their place, sometimes we go to hospital rooms, and it happens. But I think the most important thing for me at the outset of a case is to educate the client on what to expect in the short term, because what happens in almost every case is the client wants to know what's going to happen when those bills start rolling in, because that's a scary thing. And, there's no protection for these folks with their credit and whatnot. So a bill starts rolling in, okay, your bill was $10,000, but your deductible, you got to pay $1,500. And so, our clients a lot of times don't just have that much money lying around that they can just throw at this. So we have to help them work through that and get them set up for that. We talk about medical payments coverage, which we have on this show before. And so my initial goal, my initial thing is to put them at ease with that, because that's usually on the forefront of their mind, aside from actual treatment, aside from, if they have to continue, if they have significant medical procedures going forward, they're concerned about their families. They're concerned about the fact that they're not earning any money. They might be off work. How am I going to get my lost wages? So we talk about what to do in the short term, and then I explain what we do in the long term and kind of from a legal perspective. And my primary goal is, when someone's in an automobile collision, they already have things on their plate for their life, right? And an automobile collision puts a lot more things on your plate. My goal is to take as many things off of their plate as possible. And I can't take the treatment away. That's something that they have to keep, unfortunately. But most of the other stuff we're able to take. And so I try to explain some of those things to them and try to put them at ease. And I think the importance of that is almost every one of these people, they've never met me in their whole life. Maybe they saw my picture on the internet, maybe they heard me on the radio, but they've never met me, never seen me, and they don't know yet if they can trust me with what might be the the most important thing that's happened to them in their life. And so it's important to me to build that trust right from the beginning. And so that's how I approach initially meeting a client.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you believe that the important part of that meeting is setting expectations of how both you and Scott handle a case?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's, I want my clients to know from the first meeting that their case is important, it's going to be handled thoroughly, it's going to be handled as quickly as possible. A lot of times we can't control, how fast another party moves, and that might affect us, but it's important that our clients understand that their case is important and that we are doing everything we can to get resolution, to get justice as quickly as possible. Now, sometimes that can be a few months, that can be a few years. It really depends on the case, the types of injuries and whatnot. But building trust, setting the standard of what they're to expect from us going forward is very important. And that is another aspect of things, because they want to know, again, they don't know us personally. It's not, it's not somebody they've known for years and they trust. We've got to build that trust. And that starts at the first meeting. And that starts by addressing the concerns that they're going to have, which are, again, treatment, bills, lost wages. What am I going to do? That's the big question. So, and we try to answer those questions for them.
So when you're in there to try to alleviate the stress, I mean, obviously this is a very stressful thing they're going to go through. So you've had that meeting, and Scott says, you've said this before, go get treated, get your medical checkup, make sure you're doing the right thing there. So they've had that, then it transitions into what? There's a period where you're doing discovery, or where does that go from there?
Well, as soon as we get a case, we put people on notice of our representation, which is one of the most important things you can do. So that it's not just a meaningless piece of paper that says, hey, we represent so-and-so, but it also, it takes one of the things off of our client's plate, which means people stop calling them. The other person's insurance company can't call them anymore. Their own insurance company, in a lot of situations, will stop calling them. They're not going to get calls from people anymore. And so that's a good thing. That's a thing to take off the plate. And so we do that right away. We start gathering all the information that's available. It might be an accident report. It might be some type of reconstruction, photographs. We locate where vehicles are. We do everything in the beginning as if we're going to have to go to trial, because evidence gets lost very easily, very quickly. And so you have to get it immediately. You can't wait. And that's something that Scott has taught me in my time with him. And it's something that he has learned over the years, and he takes it very, very seriously, and I take it very, very seriously. If you sign up a new client and you take their file and you set it over to the side, and a couple weeks go by, 3 weeks go by, eventually some of the evidence that might be crucial to the case might be lost, and you can't get it back. And then, you get into a situation where, did I commit malpractice? Did I not? But the point is that you've got to move on these cases quickly. You've got to get everything together. And in the meantime, the client is treating and getting better. And that, you run in parallel with your client. They're working on getting better. You're working on getting their case better. And so that's how we approach it from the beginning. However the case goes, we react from there. A case might call for an accident reconstruction. A case might call for different types of experts, life care plans if we're talking about really serious injuries. And so and this is something, we do, and it's something that's very, very important for a lot of lawyers to do, is we really try to do jury instructions from the beginning. And I know that,
break that down.
Yeah, you kind of perked up when I said that, but jury instructions are the instructions that are read to a jury. And basically it's the instructions on the law of the case and what they're going to be deciding. And the reason we do it from the beginning is, if I have a case and I see what the case is about, and I go pull the law and the jury instructions for that case from the beginning, then I know what I need to prove my case. This is what I have to prove. So that dictates what I request, what I need to get. What do I have to request from the other side? kind of expert do I need? What do I need to prove? And that's something that a lot of places, trust me, do not do. But we do that because we find that it's the most effective way to prepare for trial. Now, most cases do not go to trial, but we have to prepare as if they are going to trial. You don't want to prepare as if a case is not going to trial and then it does go to trial.
What is it saying? You don't have to get prepared if you're already prepared.
There you go. So I think that is the way we approach every case from the beginning to get prepared for every contingency, including trial.
Do your clients know that? I mean, do you set that expectation up front? Do you say, this is how we handle it, as though this is going to go to trial? Because we see a lot of marketing pieces out there that are, you know, we're going to settle your case. We're going to get you money. It seems to be money is the determining factor in all this. And I know at the end of the day, it's the same way for you guys, that you're trying to get people put back on their feet. But it seems like there's more people out there that are trying to expedite this, get it done faster, so I know you can get a check out of this.
Yes, you know, you've seen commercials, you've seen things like that out there, everybody has, where, you know, quick settlement, quick money, that sort of thing. The problem with that approach is that it feeds into the needs of the client, but in a bad way.
It seems like it feeds into fear, or trying to assuage the fear you have now. So it's a short-term fix versus a long-term gain.
Yes. Almost everybody could use some money, right? And the problem with that approach is that, you know, somebody that's been in a collision that has a lot on their mind, you know, somebody waves a couple $1,000s in front of their face, hey, I can get this for you quick, boo bam, we're out of here. You know, that there are attorneys, there are law firms that do that. We don't do that. We investigate everything. We look for every angle. And I can tell you, on many, many occasions, we had a case where on first blush, it wasn't very big, and then you dig in, you find more, and it turns into a much, much bigger case, and it's a much, much bigger recovery for the client. So sometimes, actually I'll say most times, patience is a virtue in these cases. You got to be patient. That doesn't mean you don't move quickly and diligently, but you have to be patient. You have to let things develop and see what happens. Treatment. You know, a lot of times my clients treat for months, you know, years. You can't resolve a case in 2 months when the client's still treating. So you have to work with your client and make them understand that, look, this is a process. And that's the important part, because a lot of people are, you know, a lot of people do want to get money quickly out of these things. And it's my job, it's Scott's job, to explain that you have to be patient, you have to stay the course, and that's why you came to us, because we're going to get you through that course, and it'll hopefully pay off in the long run.
So I have a question based on what you just said. Who's in charge once they've retained you as counsel? The client or the attorney? Because you're advising them as best as you can based on what you know. But as you're digging into this, and if you find out this might take a year, and the client says, I'd like to settle it and get it over with, who's in charge at that point?
Well, ultimately, it depends on what decision is to be made. The client is always the deciding person when it comes to a resolution of a case. If they want to settle their case, then that's their case, you know. My job is to advise them and to say, look, this is a good settlement, this is a bad settlement, you know, there's more we have to do, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, that's their call. For our purposes, when we get in court and we're talking about like litigation decisions, that's really up to us, and that's kind of,
well, I should preface it by that. Before you get into the court, who's in charge?
Yeah, the clients are always in charge because they're the client, and it's their case, it's their life, it's their treatment, it's their medical bills. My job is to advise them, and if I'm advising them properly, and they're giving my advice fair consideration, then we're in good shape, you know. And sometimes I have to explain things and break things down, and some clients are more receptive and some clients aren't. It happens, but at the end of the day, I've never really had a problem with that. Is once I explain things, and that's why you explain things from the beginning. That way, you talk about how it, you know, you look down the road and you explain, look, this isn't something that's going to be over next week or next month. You know, you need to be in for the long haul. And if it ends earlier, great. Everybody wins in that regard. But, you know, we always prepare as if it's going to be a long road. And if it's a short road, then that's good.
And you've said it differs from a lot of different firms because you're starting with, you're starting to prepare for war. You may not get there, but the client also has to know the expectation that you have for them, right? I mean, there's certain things they have to follow through. Their medical treatment and you know, whatever you advise them to do, they are still in charge, but you are kind of guiding the way.
Absolutely. You know, I can't speak for any other law firms necessarily, or I certainly won't degrade other firms' practices, but from our perspective, it is in the client's best interest to always thoroughly investigate every aspect to a case. And if that takes more time, if that takes more money, then so be it. Because we have to do those things. We have an obligation, an ethical obligation to our clients to always give them the best representation possible. And I think if you operate from a standpoint of, we're going to get you a settlement. If that's a business model, I don't know how well that serves that purpose. For us, we take every case and we advise our clients on how to deal with their immediate short-term issues, and we investigate every aspect of a case. And you know, we've talked on the show about cases where at first blush it almost looked like our client didn't have a case, but Scott dug in, looked closer, we talked to experts. Now we got a case. Now it's different. It went from 0 to something, you know. And so that's the kind of work we do. That the kind of case that I'm talking about. Those are cases that those other places turn away because it's not an easy, obvious. Oh, we can settle this. We can resolve it. Let's go. Sometimes these cases are harder, and you need real professionals, real attorneys that dig in, that look into these cases to make sure that they're getting you 100% justice. Because just because you know, you might get a settlement of some amount of money does not mean you got justice. You just got some money. Justice is getting the full measure of what was taken from you when somebody else hurt you.
We need to take a break right now, but I want to get to something. You said something that I think is going to be appealing because I want you to define what you just said. So for now, you're listening to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith. I want to define what digging is like. I need to do the collision
accident
reconstruction, but also that we talked about last week, how you and Scott were looking at that one phrase in that journal.
You mean in the insurance policy where we both didn't understand what the hell it meant.
Right, but you didn't go, I don't understand, and I'm skipping it. Like, I want to really drill down on the different things you guys do. So the fact that, I mean, I've heard Scott on the phone and going fucking nuts on somebody for the client. So I want to talk about how diligent you are doing that. Okay, cool.
We just got about 9 minutes.
We're going to go 11. One louder.
Am I bringing us back?
You'll bring us back.
11. See, it's one louder. It's final.
Make this one loudest. This one goes to 11.
Exactly. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Welcome back to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith, attorney Nicholas Owen with Michael Morris, and we're continuing our conversation about automobile collisions and what we do at Scott Elliot Smith LPA. And Michael is so interested. We continue the conversations off air. We're going to continue it into the afternoon, perhaps.
We shouldn't even take breaks. We should just keep going. We are on Facebook Live, so if you're watching on Facebook Live, you'll see all the little chatter. But this is what happens all day and all night when we get together anyway.
That's right.
What I wanted to talk about is you said the term when you dig into a case. I want you to explain what that means, because I think a lot of people use that term as I'm going to roll up my sleeve. That's not what you mean. When you're saying dig in, you're actually going to go into the letter of the law. And I give the example of when you and Scott were reading that insurance policy, because I think that's the best way to look at it. People might think that everyone knows it, the interpretation's the same, and it's not.
Well, it's not. And one thing that Scott taught me, one of the first times we spoke about his philosophy, was that he's always searching for a universal truth in a case. One driver says this happened, one driver says this happened, the cop thought this happened. There's a universal truth. There's something that actually did happen, right? There's a universal truth of any case. And that's our goal, is to find out what that universal truth is and what implication does that universal truth have for our client. And to get the universal truth, you have to find out everything that happened in a collision, every aspect to it. So that's digging in. That is getting the accident report. That's easy, right? That's getting a Google Earth shot of the intersection. That's going and seeing the intersection. That's retaining an accident reconstructionist, perhaps, to tell us what happened. If we have two different versions of what happened, and it's not, clear cut at all what happened, you get an accident reconstructionist to tell us what they think happened based on the speeds and the angles of the cars and all this other stuff. There's a lot that goes into it, but that's digging in. Digging in is also getting your face into a really dense insurance policy and knowing it and knowing what it says. And then sometimes you'll run into a strangely worded provision, as we had spoken about before, and what you're referring to is where, this particular case where Scott and I were both reading the same, it was a sentence, and it is a very crucial sentence to our case, very crucial. And we both could not, for the life of us, figure out what the heck it meant. And so when you're in that place, that's what being a lawyer is about. Now let's go find out what it means. Let's go do some legal research. What does this mean?
But you also have experts that you can talk to.
Well,
I mean, not that you guys don't know it, but if you need certain medical terms explained, I think 34 years of that firm being in business, you're going to have some connections. You have your own. And I think that's important to also say that it's not just two guys in a room with a book. It is using the tools that are available to you for your clients.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we use every tool possible. If you're talking about medical stuff, obviously we speak to doctors, have medical experts. There's that. There's accident reconstructionists, life care plans. There's economists we use to predict future value of your earnings, your 401k, and all these really, really catastrophic cases. But when it comes down to the actual legal work, which is what reading an insurance policy is and interpreting what the provision means and the implications for our clients, that's the hard stuff. And you got to get in there and you got to see what provision applies to the situation, why it applies, what does it mean, and then you got to go find out how it can be interpreted favorably for your client. And that's what we ended up having to do in that particular case. And it turns out that there was quite a lot of case law on that particular provision, and the cases actually said it was really difficult to understand too, so that made us feel better. But to your original question of digging in is finding out everything, and finding out everything helps us get to the universal truth. And that's the most important thing in any case, because you cannot get the full measure of recovery, which is justice, which we said earlier. Justice is the full measure of recovery. You can't get that unless you know everything, unless you see every angle, and you get to the universal truth of any case.
And that can't be done in a short amount of time.
No.
I mean, it can't be. Expectation should be, just because we meet, it doesn't mean that this is done in a week or a month.
That's right. I mean, and every case is different. Some cases do resolve pretty quickly, depending upon policy limits. I mean, if somebody's catastrophically injured and there's very little insurance coverage, that case is likely to resolve much quicker than a case where somebody is injured very badly in a trucking collision, and the trucking cases, the insurance on trucking cases is much, much higher. Those cases tend to last a lot longer because there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more money available, and our clients are usually still treating. Perhaps they're always treating. They're treating for the rest of their lives. So those cases take a very, very long time. And there's everything in between. So what we try to do is we evaluate our case, from the beginning when we see, and then we give our client the expectation of, what they can expect going forward. But we always err to the side of, look, this is going to take a while. Don't count on this being some type of we're going to get you a settlement fast kind of thing, because that's not the firm. That's not Scott Elliot Smith LPA. That's other firms, and that's fine. That's what they choose to do. And if a client is looking for that, then then that's where they want to go. But if they're looking to get justice, if they're looking to get the full measure of damages, they should come see us.
So if we could leave anybody with, again, today we wanted to give more of an overview because I think we kind of in the past have stuck to the letter of the law more than what happens on that first meeting. All I wanted you to do, and you did a great job today, was just define the initial meeting and what expectations are, because what I think you said was very important. If you just want a settlement, you can get that, but that's not really the route that you guys go. You guys are going for the maximum recovery you can get. And I think it's important that people know that, because there are so many people out there, they'll get you that settlement, but they're not going to do the level of research and also digging in, as you say.
And I think another aspect to this that should not be undersold is Scott Smith's reputation out there with the insurance companies and their attorneys. They know when they see Scott's name as the attorney that they're going to get a fight. This is not going to be a push around.
Yeah. I heard him on the phone. You're going to get a fight.
Yeah, you're not going to get an attorney you can push around. You're going to get an attorney that's going to turn over every stone. And they already know that based on the experience that they've had with Scott over the years. They know that it's not going to be an easy deal. They know that Scott will take them to trial. And they know that Scott will win if he does. And so that is completely different than dealing for an insurance company to deal with a law firm that they know won't go to trial, that they know is looking for a quick, easy settlement. So in that scenario, you know, you're likely to get less in that scenario, because if they're not exposed, if they don't feel that they're exposed to go to trial and to lose big, then you know it's not going to be as good for you, we think. Scott's reputation, Scott's experience, and hopefully one day I'll be able to say that about myself.
I'll say it about you.
Yeah, well, thank you. But his experience, the work that he's done over the years, has earned a reputation that we like to give to our clients, and that's really muscle behind it, and it's a reputation that the insurance company is going to deal with your case properly, and it gets us closer to the justice that you deserve. So I want to thank you for listening to Scott Elliot Smith, Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith today. Attorney Nicholas Owen with Michael Morris, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Perfect.
Great.
Ray, what are you doing?
Should I redo that closing?
No, it's okay.
Are you sure?
No, that was fine.
There's